Welcome everybody to Forza Motorsport 7, and today we're taking a look at the 1986 Alfa Romeo GTV-6. Now this was based on the Alfetta GT, which was produced between 1974 and 1987. The GT itself was actually based on the Alfetta Saloon, with this GTV-6 introduced in 1980. And yeah, it's got this pronounced bulge on the hood to be able to accommodate the much larger engine, as up until this car's introduction the largest engine you can have was a 2 litre inline 4 engine, but this luckily has a 2.5 litre V6 engine producing 155 horsepower and 157 pounds-feet of torque, which granted in comparison to today's kind of cars with these kind of engines that's not much, but at least it doesn't weigh much at 2,840 pounds. And yeah, it was a car that also for the first time with this engine came with a fuel injection. So yeah, it made it more reliable and easier to start, and also meant it kept its horsepower and torque ratings for a lot longer. And yeah, in 1984 it actually got new gear ratios and an updated interior, and yeah, it was also a successful racing car, as it won the European Touring Car Championship between 1982 and 1985, so that's 4 years on the trot. It won the British Touring Car Championship in 1983, and more besides, it also won the Australian Rally Championship in 1987. So, successful track car, successful rally car, and yeah, because it's based on a saloon, it's actually really rather large for a coupe. As you can see, it's got plenty of space in the front, plenty of space in the back, and yeah, it's also got a hatchback design. So yeah, it's also really rather practical. So yeah, it's easily one of the more practical vehicles that is also a coupe. It's rear-wheel drive, and yeah, with that V6 engine, it sounds as good as it looks, which I think it looks really rather nice. Only real problem with it is the American big bumpers that it's got on it, but luckily you can take them off. And yeah, and even though it's not my favourite Alfa Romeo design in terms of the way it looks, in terms of practical design, it is easily one of their best, because yeah, it's got all of that interior space, got that hatchback rear design, and yeah, because obviously this is the 1986 version, it's also got that updated interior and those better gear ratios, but it is still really awfully 80s in here with the square dials and the like. But yeah, it's everything's here that you'd expect to be here, and yeah, being an Alfa Romeo automatically, you know, makes it a more desirable car than it would be if it had a different badge from with undoubtedly a different engine. But nonetheless, let's get out onto a track and see what this car can do. Right, so we're at Mugello Autodromo Nazionale for one lap, because it's quite a long circuit for a car of this power and performance. But yeah, it's still easily one of my favourite Alfa Romeos, even if I don't think the styling is quite up to Alfa Romeo's best. But yeah, you've got that glorious V6 engine, which again isn't their best because it's not the highest revving, but it's still a glorious engine in its own right. And yeah, 2.5 litre V6 is certainly much bigger than certain coupes from the period, especially around the same kind of price as this. But it wasn't the biggest engine you could get in this car. You could get a 3 litre V6, but that was only available in South Africa, and it only had a couple of hundred made for it, because it was that engine in this car was made purely for racing. So those 200 examples were for homologation purposes only, and I think some small-time manufacturer or you know, engineering company or whatever put in a V8 at some point. But yeah, this was easily the biggest engine you could get in this car in terms of full production, and yeah, I really do like it, even if it isn't the highest of revving of V6s. And yeah, performance-wise, it's fairly decent. No, again, hardly remarkable. 0 to 60 in 9.1 seconds, 0 to 125.2 seconds, and it'll go into a top speed of 131 miles an hour, which is reasonable for the time. Again, it's, if you're looking at it from a modern perspective, it is far from the quickest of vehicles, especially for a car with this size of engine. But back then, that's still a pretty reasonable acceleration rate and top speed. And at the end of the day, you still get a really rather nice sounding V6. You get a really practical coupe that is certainly even more practical than probably some saloon cars from the time. And yeah, that's down to a lot of the fact that it's based on a saloon car. And yeah, it's even got a decent balance. It's 51% weight up front, so it's very nearly 50-50 weight distribution. And because it's rear wheel drive, you know, you can have fun with it if you so wish, but you don't really need to, because the handling is nigh on perfect for a car with this kind of power and speed. Sure, it would probably be outclassed if it had even more power from an even larger engine, but with the power it's got and the torque it's got, which are reasonably balanced between the two, there's only 2 extra pound-feet of torque over the horsepower, which you don't often see, to be honest, which is nice, to be honest, because it means it's got a nice power band. It's a gradual power band, it's not one that just leaps onto you in a moment or whatever, like a turbocharged engine would. And yeah, it's just a nice car to drive, and yeah, it's easily one of my favourite Alfa Romeos on the game, but in terms of Alfa Romeos generally, it's not quite up there due to the iffy styling in places and the lackluster performance in comparison to modern Alfa Romeos. But on the whole, it's a cracking car, and yeah, easily one of my favourites that they've put on the game from Alfa Romeo. But I would like more from them, because they have done plenty. I don't feel we've had enough Alfa Romeo road cars from before the 90s. We've had plenty from the 90s onwards, but before the 90s we've not really had all that many. We've had this, the Spider, and the Montreal, but in terms of other road cars, I don't think we've had all that many really. So yeah, it would be nice to see some more, but we'll have to wait until the next Forza again to see that. But nonetheless, thanks for watching, and if you've not tried this car, try it out, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.